The dynamic fantasy duo is whole once again for a Saturday special episode of your source for fantasy hockey news, betting breakdowns, and everything happening in the world of the NHL. It's the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast coming in hot with some Sid, Ovi, and a little Ottawa Senators news. Let's get this paper.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Giddy up, my friends. Salute, much love, and thank you so much for the everydayers for making us your first listen every single day, and that is of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. I'm joined, as always, by my distinguished co-host, Mr. Steele Rodin. Little rusty here, Steele. Got to get back in the saddle here. And your boy, Big Flip Livingstone. Seriously, just got to say off the top of the show, much love to everybody out there holding us down. Much love to my grandmother and my grandfather going through a little bit of personal trauma over here, Steele. But hockey brings us out of the darkest of days, and I'm ready and fired up to talk about some angles that you know are, for good and bad, near and dear to our heart. The Ottawa Senators, probably on the bad side of things, but right now they're cooking. We'll talk about them. Ovi, somehow nearing a return, and Sidney Crosby, the two faces of the NHL. You know how I feel about these guys, Steele. We'll get into it, of course. Loaded Saturday board of bets. I got stats. I got picks. I'm ready to ride. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Start the seasons big with a new return on FanDuel. That's a $5 winner. You get $150 back in bonus bets. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Over to you, Mr. Rodin. I don't know what you think about these Ottawa Senators because I've got a take for you. Brady Tkachuk, impressive. What a warrior. Absolute fantasy beast. However, I've got some concerns. So, over to you. What are you seeing from the Ottawa Senators, fantasy or otherwise?
It is about damn time that they have come to life this season because we've been, as Toronto Maple Leaf fans, obviously we have some judgment and strong feelings for the Ottawa Senators, but you and I have talked them up over the years countless times, and finally they are living up to the expectations. They are 7-2-1 in their last 10 games. Brady Tkachuk, like you said, currently ranked number 1 on Yahoo's fantasy sports app for fantasy hockey league, so he's getting it done. You know, I'm a huge fan of what he brings in categorical leagues with the peripheral, the physical aspects that he brings, as well as the offensive touch that he shows with the Ottawa Senators as their captain. But the main guy we need to talk about, we're going to talk about all of them. The main guy is Linus Ullmark. Oh my goodness. He's putting up video game stats right now. He is in God mode for the Senators in the blue paint. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can see the graphic here. He has gone 8-1-0 in his last 9 games, a .954 save percentage in that time with 2 shutouts. Not bad at all for this Ottawa Senators team. And they currently find themselves in that second wildcard spot on a 5-game win streak. So again, putting up some ridiculous numbers as the number 1 goaltender for the Senators organization right now. And this is why I've been preaching him over the last 4 or 5 years. He is a stellar goaltender for any organization. Obviously struggled off the top at the beginning of the season, but he's found his footing. He's found his mojo, his groove, and he's not letting it up right now. The Ottawa Senators are red hot.
And I think that's one of those fantasy angles headed into this season. Yeah, you and I have backed the Ottawa Senators, but maybe there are some doubters out there about their overall longevity.
Of course.
Linus Ullmark, I don't think there was much doubt that he was going to go to this team, take that crease in terms of what he had to share with Jeremy Swayman last year, and fantasy-wise, be a stud. And now he is being just that and then some. I've got 2 takes here, Steele. Number 1, I really had to show some love to a player that you know that I have been high on since you and I have started about hockey, and that's Drake Batherson. That's a player that I'm invested in the Keeper Dynasty realm, and that's a player that has really, I know he's been kind of bubbling and kind of progressing and putting up good numbers, but this season, 13 Genos, 20 assists, looking great. He chips in with the body. I love his physicality at times. But what I like the most of what I've seen from the Ottawa Senators of late is this power play, when they are on, They are one of the best units in the league, and that's not just the eye test. That's in paper and statistics. I believe they sit right now 7th in power play proficiency, and seeing Timmy Stutz, Brady Tkachuk, and Drake Batherson kind of dance around a little bit. A couple of games ago, there was just some significantly impressive board play from Drake Batherson, the passing ability from Timmy Stutz. You've got Brady Tkachuk in front of the net, literally laying it on the line every single game. So that's one thing. I had to give some love to Drake Batherson. Those 3 forwards, Steele, when they go, they are very hard to stop, regardless of who they're playing. I'll say this, though. Number one, when I look at the teams in the Atlantic Division standings, the Boston Bruins, I'm going to say this Ottawa Senators team is better than them. I'm comfortable saying that, just given the offensive punch. But after that, I just don't know where they fit in. However, very much believe that they deserve to be that top wild card team in the Eastern Conference. I don't think they're better than the Leafs, Panthers, or Lightning, but we'll see what they can do down the stretch in number 2. And I just want to throw this back at you for a little food for thought. In December, they lose to the Ducks 4-3. Then they beat the Wings, the Preds, the Ducks, lose to the Islanders, beat the Penguins, Flames, and Seattle Kraken, and you mix in a W against the Carolina Hurricanes there, which is a very impressive win. But for the most parts, I think you heard the Ducks a lot. I think you heard the Islanders a lot. You know what I'm getting at here.
Yeah.
And some of those games were squeakers. I'm not trying to detract from a very good stretch of play. I just want to see what this team can do rolling up against all the big boys in the East. And I know Carolina is that. But all of those other teams are bottom feeders for the most part. So I'm not ready. We've been hurt too many times by the Sens team. I'm not ready to say they are a shoe-in for the playoffs, but they are looking like they should hold down one of those wild card spots and then see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it with the Winnipeg Jets too. Obviously, they started very hot to the season, winning their first 14, 15 games of the year. But they had an easy schedule. And then once they got into that tough schedule mid-November, going up against the Florida Panthers, the Tampa Bay Lightning, Carolina Hurricanes, a lot of those top-tier teams in the Eastern Conference, we saw that confidence and the hot streak just absolutely crumble for the Winnipeg Jets. It looked like they were, just completely distancing themselves from everybody in the National Hockey League, and then they fall back down. So yes, the Ottawa Senators have won a lot of games against some lower tier teams. Let's see that consistency against some top tier teams right now. And like you said, the 3-headed dragon of Tkachuk, Stützle, and Batherson, all 3 of those guys, point per game players. Linus Ullmark has been an absolute stud so far for your fantasy hockey teams. Obviously, I think on the blue line, Jake Sanderson and Thomas Chabot have been really good in this stretch as well. When you look at the Ottawa Senators as a whole fantasy-wise, once you get past Claude Giroux, Josh Norris, I believe Giroux's rostered at 61% right now on Yahoo. Josh Norris is rostered around 40, 45% on Yahoo as well. Once you get past those 2 guys, there's really not anyone worth rostering on your fantasy hockey team. I mean, as a streamer throughout the weekend or throughout the week, picking up some guys for some key matchups if you need to win in those categories if they're playing on the Saturday and Sunday. But I mean, Adam Gaudette, you look at some of these guys who have kind of popped up. I know we want to talk a little bit about Shane Pinto, but really there's no one else you can pick from this Senators team other than the top 6 forward group, Thomas Chabot, Jake Sanderson, and of course, Linus Ullmark.
Nick Jensen on a week-to-week.
He's been pretty good,
on a peripherals. I think I'd like to tip the cap a little bit to him because, there was a lot of heat there for that move. Obviously, Chychrun in Washington, they've had a lot more success. However, Jensen plus 13, I think that leads the team plus 15. Anyway, just a little bit of love to some other players. And just very quickly, maybe we'll just talk about it right after the break because we'll keep today short. But I think some of the reason why this team has actually had a lot of success lately is some of those bottom 6 guys, the Ridley Greggs, the Noah Gregors, the Shane Pintos of the world coming to life a little bit. So that's been key. Just want to talk about Pinto very quickly after the break because there was so much hype coming into this season about this player. We'll talk about Sid. We'll talk about Ovi. We'll get to tonight's 11-game betting board. If you want to be making some picks, you got to be checking out today's sponsor. Shout out to Prize Picks. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. If you love sports, you're going to love Prize Picks, the best place to turn your sports knowledge into real cash, whether it's hockey, football, or any of your favorite sports. Prize Picks makes it easy for you to get in on the action, and right now you can win 100 times your money. Actually, steal better that 1,000 times your money on Prize Picks. It's holiday season, and they're giving away 30+ mil during Picksmas, so make sure you're checking it out. Download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. That's right. First $5 lineup gets you $50 instantly. That's Prize Picks. Run your game.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Pod your first listen every single day, especially over the holidays. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, the follow button, leave a 5-star review. Flip and I appreciate all that love and support. Make sure you can share it with your friends and family as well. We really do appreciate all the support we've been getting. Like I said, over the holiday season is crucial. So we really do appreciate all of that. Continuing the conversation with the Ottawa Senators, I know you want to talk a little bit about Shane Pinto and some of those other guys.
Yep.
I think in general, the bottom six guys, they've really helped this team turn it around over the last 10 games. Again, for me personally, fantasy-wise, I don't think there's a lot of value with that bottom six group. But over to you, Shane Pinto, what are you seeing?
I just think given how good I've seen this kid shoot the puck, and he, 6'3", 200+ pound frame, the ability to pop goals, like he looks like he was in the league a very long time. And I understand he's had the off ice issues with the suspension, and I believe he was hurt for a prolonged period of time this season. He scored 2 goals against a defensively stingy Carolina Hurricanes team. Then he pops another one the next night in another 3-0 win against Seattle. And I just hope that this is a sign of things to come, because I really do like this player, Steele. And I think headed into the season, I would be shocked if you're still have hung on to Shane Pinto at this point, considering how awful his start was, fantasy or otherwise. But this is time to jump back in on the Shane Pinto train, in my opinion, especially while this Ottawa Senators team is cooking. Obviously, the deployment can sometimes be an issue. His ice time is sitting at right around this year, I believe. What's he at here? He's at just almost 17 minutes in ice time per night, slightly up on his career average. Just kind of wanted to highlight it because I really won't be shocked if this kid starts to really pick it up and stay there over the second half of the season. I think that will be critical to the Ottawa Senators' success. Now, if you're okay with it, just quickly into Ovi, because I got some bullets in the chamber for Sid the Kid. However, patience with a player like Ovi for those fantasy GMs out there who have been itching to get him right back in the lineup. The time is almost here, and you're just going to have to be wary, because throwing him right back in there, yes, it's what you have to do for sure as a fantasy GM. But if he does struggle and you're really battling for position right now, you might have to perhaps just kind of hold. Depending on your lineup, he might be an automatic. He's back in regardless. I'm just saying, Steele, just because he's back doesn't mean he automatically starts burying right away. Just wanted to say that.
He's getting tossed back into the lineup. I mean,
you're right.
You're not keeping him on the bench. You're not keeping him on the IR. This is Alexander Ovechkin. He is a different beast. He was back to skating 3 weeks after this injury. So, he's been out since November 23rd. He's missed 13 games. The Washington Capitals have, steadily moved on, moved forward without him. Out of the lineup. They're 8-4-1 in their last 13 games. Again, they're still a top team in the Metropolitan Division. They're getting some really good scoring from Tom Wilson, Dylan Strome, all those guys in the forward group, Pierre-Luc Dubois, Andrew Mangiapane, making some moves as well. John Carlson, obviously on the back end. The goaltending's been McMichael,
Brodus.
The goaltending has been phenomenal for them for the most part all season long.
Yep.
In the 13 games that he's missed, there's been no blowouts. They've all been, almost all of the 13 games were 1-goal games, whether it was a loss or a win. So they've been very, very, steady, like I said, with him out of the lineup. But when he comes back, which I know there's been some rumors, some, swirling around there that he could potentially return before Christmas. It's not going to be until after Christmas. I believe the return date, the set date for his return is December 27th against the Toronto Maple Leafs. I believe it is spicy one, but it's only a week away from Alexander Ovechkin potentially when he's fully healthy and he's back in. you're of course tossing him back in the lineup.
I didn't mean hold on him going back on the lineup.
Okay.
I guess I just meant that I wouldn't expect fantasy GMs to just put him in, and he might struggle to fit back in just because of his age. I'm just going to say, I'm not saying you pull him out. You just got to be careful still, okay? That's why we
What,
do
you want to
this
drop
together.
Ovi? Are you saying drop Ovi?
Yeah, for sure. Drop him, get rid of him, but don't do the same with this next guy because you know how I feel, and I came ready with the statistics. The angle we were going to discuss coming into the other night before he dropped the 4-piece in points. By the way, Steele, a 4-point night has happened 41 times in Sidney Crosby's career, up there with the likes of, let me throw a few names at you, Mark Messier with 42, Bobby Orr with 42, Ron Francis with 44, Yari Curry with 47, and the list goes on and on. Very quickly, sidebar, Wayne Gretzky, 4+ point games. 217. Okay, the next closest is Lemieux with 124. Anyway, all I've got to say is the conversation I wanted to have with you coming into the other night is with him on that goalless skid, all of that kind of a thing. Is it time to potentially start looking at these guys, Ovi and Sid, these big names that are obviously nearing the end of their elite fantasy value? Sooner or later, it's going to happen. It's what do you do with Sid? And then he goes out there and he absolutely feasts. And it just makes me think, Steele, and I do have another couple of stats to ream off once I turn it back over to you, is where would this Pittsburgh Penguins team be, fantasy or otherwise, like the value in Raquel, the value in Rust and all of that, without Sidney Crosby? He's just been that good. And immediately he shuts me up. And the answer is you do nothing. You hold on to him. He's still bringing the peripherals as well. I looked into that. Block shots, he might set a career high. He's still throwing the body around a little. He's got 33 hits this season. The shots are down, and that's a concern. I just don't know what you think. I say you hold on to him and you just ride it out.
Yeah, I mean, to me, you don't do anything. You keep this player. I know there was some, some people out there who were worried that this might be the first season he finishes under a point per game at under a point per game rate. But look what he just did in the last 5 games, 9 points, I believe it was in the last 5. He's up to 35 points in 34 games. Like you said, finally popped a goal, gets off the schneid, which I believe his last goal before that was on November 23rd, actually the same day Alexander Ovechkin got injured. But finally gets a goal, what he's been hoping for. He's been a playmaker in the meantime. He's been setting up his line mates as much as possible. Obviously, it's been difficult with some other pieces with the Pittsburgh Penguins. You don't move this guy. And I wouldn't even say he's shooting less. He still has 104 shots in 34 games. I mean,
yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it might be less compared to the year prior where he had 278, but
not by
he
much,
still had a very good rate. Like you said, the peripherals, the blocks and hits, that's nice to see as well. But yeah, I mean, it's just nice to see him put one in the back of the net after a long time without a goal. And Sidney Crosby, this is not a player that you move on from unless, again, there's always a price for everything out there. It's got to be a very, very hefty price to try and acquire Sidney Crosby in your fantasy league.
Thank you for saying that. The Pens 7-2-1 in their last 10. As Sid goes, they go. It's pretty simple here in Pittsburgh for the most part. And let me ream off a few more stats and we can get to break. Big time bets coming up. I got 3 picks ready to rock. Guess what? Sid might be in there. Shocker. Last night, 2 nights ago, the Pens earned the multi-goal comeback win against the Preds. Crosby in that passes Ron Francis for the 5th most 3-assist games in NHL history, and he passes Steve Yzerman for the 7th most multi-point outings. And let me just finish it with this. He is only the 4th player in NHL history with 1,200 career points in winning games only. And that's kind of what I wanted to end this segment with. There are a lot of very impressive offensive numbers on this list. A lot of really good players who had great careers, but they didn't get it done. And Crosby has done nothing but get it done. And if these 3 names don't prove that they're winners, the only 3 players who have 1,200 points or more in winning games, there's all kinds of impressive things when you're losing 6-1. But when you're winning games, tie games, come from behind games, only Wayne Gretzky, Mark Messier, and Jaromir Jagr have more points in winning games in NHL history. Enough said. He is a winner. He's one of the best to ever do it. And you know how I feel about Sid. So I decided to come on and show some love to my boy since I've been away for a few days and it's been a little while.
I know how you feel, and I know what you're going to be getting up to in big time bets. You might as well
Giddy
just
up.
say it right now. Crosby, anytime assist, the Apple. We're getting
Lock it
after
up.
it. Where you can place those bets, though, that's FanDuel.com. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 right now and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place those bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Once again, thank you so much for tuning in for today's Saturday special of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Pod, making it your first listen every single day. Continue to smash that subscribe button, the follow button, leave a 5-star review, and share with your family and friends. We're trying to earn some extra loot over the holiday season. Christmas is only 4 days away right now.
Yep.
Still got to go Christmas shopping. I'm leaving it to the last minute out here, Flip.
Bold.
I know it's a bold move. Hopefully it pays off for me. It's bold out there, but we're getting after it. Big time bets. 11 games on the schedule for Saturday. Over to you, my friend. Where are you looking first?
Well, I'll get it out of the way then. I'll do the reverse just because we were just talking about him. The last 3 meetings between the Pittsburgh Penguins and New Jersey Devils all have gone over the number while combining for 23 goals. Sidney Crosby in 85 regular season games against the New Jersey Devils, 92 points. This is one of those things, Steele, that I am just feeling it. I love Sid tonight against the New Jersey Devils. They've been pretty good defensively, but the Pittsburgh Penguins are starting to really cook offensively. Will that last? Probably not. But right now, I'm going to get a piece of it. That's the lock of the night. I'm also going to go to a player prop for my second, and if you're okay, I'll just ream them off both quick.
Rattle it off, baby.
Boston Bruins at home to the Buffalo Sabres. This is a tough spot for the Sabres on a back-to-back, having Toronto last night. The Sabres also have been owned by the Boston Bruins. 8-1-1 for the Bruins in their last 10. This stinks. This is an awful spot for them. Watch me talk this up, and Boston gets cooked. However, David Pastrnak is starting to kind of turn the needle a little bit for me, I think, Steele. And with a UPL in the cage Friday, it's going to be James Reimer in net. So I'll spit it out. Reimer has been bad, and Pasta, 3 goals over his last 5 games, and he has 16 and 36 against Buffalo in his career. Hit me with Pasta. Anytime goal, and I'm loving the under in the Winnipeg, Minnesota game. Both teams need to play a lot better after their previous game's performance. They both got pumped, so I really think that this one's going under the number. 5 of the last 6 between those two have stayed under. So Pasta anytime goal, under in the Minnesota, Winnipeg, and hit me with Sid anytime assist as my lock of the night.
Just to be clear, the under 6.5 or the under 5.5?
6.5 for sure.
Yeah.
I'm going to take it to 6.5. If it's not at 6.5, I'm a little bit shook about 5.5 these days, but I like it at 6.5. I see a 4-2, 3-2 with an empty net situation in this one.
I like the under 6.5. I think it'd be a little bit too spicy with the
It's a
under
division
5.
race too, right? A lot on the line here.
Yeah, they got to. Both teams got to play smart. I like the anytime apple from Sidney Crosby and the anytime goal from David Pastrnak. I'd definitely lean towards the Bruins on the money line against a struggling Sabres team that is winless in their last 11. My 3 bets, a little bit different here, going with money lines and puck lines. First pick, Oilers on the puck line against the San Jose Sharks. It banged out for me the other day against the Avalanche against the Sharks. The Oilers are feeling themselves offensively. Again, if we can get some consistency from Stuart Skinner, this one is a shoe-in. That will be my lock of the night as well. Second and third pick, Kings on the money line against the Nashville Predators. Again, some choking in the third period for the Nashville Predators against those Pittsburgh Penguins, a team that just cannot seem to win and clutch out in the dying minutes of the game. So I'm going with the Kings on the money line on the road as well. And then I'm liking the Sidney Crosby anytime assist. However, I'm going to go with the Devils on the money line for my third pick here. A tough loss for them against the Columbus Blue Jackets the other night. So this is a team that they should beat again. They should win against. And I'm going with the better team in this situation. So once again, Devils money line, Kings money line, lock of the night, Oilers on the puck line against the San Jose Sharks.
Absolutely cannot argue with that, Steele. I'm happy to be back, ready for another couple of loaded episode weeks. We've got holiday coverage. Even though we might be all over the map this week, we will have episodes coming up all holiday season long, some top 10 breakdowns, some end of the year fantasy standouts. You know, we like to mix things up, but keep it tapped right here every single day, Monday through Friday. And especially shout out to everyone for holding us down this week, Steele for going solo. I appreciate everybody big time. And we'll be back next week, 5 days an episode, 5 episodes a week, full court press. I'll spit out some words, I promise, Steele.
We appreciate you. We love you all out there. Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Pod your first listen every single day. For your second listen, though, you got to go check out the Locked On NHL podcast, where the season never ends, providing national expertise. You can find the link in the description below, so you don't have to go searching for it. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. From both Flip and I, we wish you a happy holidays. Good luck with your bets and weekly matchups out there, and we shall see you back here again tomorrow.
Peace.